Hello and welcome to the Content Show. This is episode 11. Who would have thought we'd make it? It's brilliant. We're almost out of lockdown in Singapore. Well, kind of. We're going to have a phased end to the lockdown. Today I'm talking about influencers, and we've been reading lots of stories in the traditional media about the death of influencers, and I was looking at it and I thought, you know what? I think that's wishful thinking. I think the influencer economy has got a long way to run. One of the problems with influencers is just the title. No one really wants to be influenced. But what we're really talking about is people with a personal brand and an audience that they can activate. And it's an incredibly powerful thing. And I think it's going to run a lot longer. If you look at just the money that influencers, the influencer economy is generating. In 2019, the influencer economy is estimated to be about $11 billion. In 2022, that's going to be $20 billion. It's an enormous leap. And so I don't think influencers are going anywhere, especially as the average amount of time spent on social media at the moment is about 2.5 hours a day. And more people are blocking ads. The traditional media is in an awful state. Advertising is disappearing. They're just struggling to stay afloat. Whereas influencers are gaining audience at an amazing rate. So there's a woman called Ariel Charnas. Now, she was the poster child of the death of influencers. She's in New York. She got COVID-19, tested positive, then lit out to the Hamptons to her luxury holiday home and posted pictures in a particularly insensitive way. So she got featured in a lot of the articles about the death of the influencer. You know what happened to her? She lost 1% of her 1.3 million followers. I don't think she's going to be hurting that much. She's probably got those back by now as well. The influencers that probably best describe the future of the influencer economy are influencers like Chloe Ting. So she's a Brunei-born Australian who's been documenting her personal fitness journey on YouTube. In January, she had 2 million views a week. By May, she's up to 50 million views a week. Just an amazing story. And she really represents probably what the future of the influencer is. In a B2B sense, like influencers are really just thought leaders, or what people used to call key opinion leaders. So B2B influencers, I think a lot of thought probably needs to go into what happens here. It's a bit like having a celebrity hire in a way, or if you think about it in media terms, hiring a popular commentator. I suspect that brands are going to have to, at some point, start building up their internal influencers and accept the fact that sometimes those influencers are going to leave and go to other companies, competitors, for instance. And so they're going to command a higher price in the market because they carry their own audience with them. But that audience can be a powerful thing, and it can really be effectively used on behalf of a brand. So there's going to have to be an adjustment process as to how brands build up their internal influencers, manage that process, benefit from it, and also deal with it when that internal influencer leaves and takes their audience with them. Finally, there's an influencer in China that I've been watching a lot lately, or my wife and I have. Really amazing. So her name is, forgive me if I pronounce this incorrectly, her name is Li Zhi, and she works on a farm. It's a bit like a British program called The River Cottage, where a chef moved to a farm and made a program just about how he was growing and cooking the food on the farm, and everyone learnt about what farm life is like at the same time as seeing how to cook great food. Well, Li Zhi is very similar. In her program, she lives with her grandparents on a farm in rural China, and she goes out and harvests the crops, and then they use all the traditional methods to process the wheat and all of these different things, and then she cooks all these amazing dishes for her grandparents. And they even do things like dyeing fabric with calico. To give you an idea of her influence, the show is very professionally produced now, but originally she just followed herself around doing these chores on the farm. Her last post was on the 20th of May. It's now the 21st of May, and she's had 5 million views already. The whole show is done without dialogue. It's kind of like meditation. Really interesting to see how this whole thing is going to develop. Next up, we've got our usual segment with our editorial content director, David Austin.
So just a bit of background. The concept is Adobe had this contest for college students to make a poster, a movie poster, and then the winner, that poster would be turned in retroactively into a film. And this particular one is directed by Zach Braff, stars Alicia Silverstone, and it's about what would influencers be like, today's Instagram influencer transposed into the 1800s.
And scripted content director and Singapore's most famous Russian comedian, Arturak Matsianov.
I think I personally have been always kind of like very suspicious, and I don't really like the word influencer. Maybe because I don't like to be influenced. It's just too much propaganda in my life and in my backstory, right?
Well, we're going to be talking about a little bit about influencers again, get their opinions on that, and looking at the week's new releases in branded content. Some great stuff coming up. And we're back. This is the Content Show, and I'm Simon Kearney, and I'm here with David Austin, our editorial content director, and Arturak Matsianov, our scripted content director and Singapore's most famous Russian comedian, to talk about content marketing news of the week and our branded content picks of the week. And we're going to start with influencers. What do you guys think?
Horrible. Hate them. No one can influence me.
I've heard Stalin was a big influencer in his
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
You know what his favorite marketing technique? Fear.
Yeah, exactly.
But
he did have a lot of followers, you know.
Oh yeah, he did.
Not many likes though.
Yeah.
I have this viewpoint that all these recent stories about the demise of influencers really, I think, is wishful thinking on the part of traditional media. Certainly, your travel influencers can't do much at the moment, poor darlings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the growth of sort of the personal brand and that brand activating an audience, which by nature became influencers, has still got a long way to run. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you. That it was definitely a knee-jerk reaction. All these stories that came out that the influencer is dead. It was really that was just a short-term reaction to, of course, the drop in tourism, drop in access to all these glorified photo backdrops. And then, of course, there were some scandals, and there was some examples of bad conduct amongst influencers. But that was a small part of the industry, and I think it's just had to readjust a little bit. But the trends are still there. The trends that people trust normal people more to get their information from, that hasn't changed. The younger generation still appreciates it more. And yeah, I think it's just readjusting. And of course, we have a really excellent blog on this piece on our website right now, going into a lot more detail.
Yeah. I mean, what I find interesting is how an individual brand can actually, an individual influencer could have a stronger personal brand than, say, a multinational company that spends millions of dollars developing its brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just that they have to act with integrity to keep that brand image going. Yeah, and it just takes maybe like one little slip up, and they can lose all of that very quickly.
That's true.
Unless you're the president of the United States.
No, let's not go there, Simon.
Said the proud American.
Yeah.
I agree that I think if the brand makes a mistake, if they post a stupid tweet, then they can just apologize. Maybe they get some bad press, but at the end of the day, they still kind of have all the business running and everything is still working. But if an influencer who is basically a one man or one woman show, essentially that can just ruin, if not, but a major part of their business. So definitely integrity and just keeping this trust. And I think I personally have been always kind of very suspicious, and I don't really like the word influencer. Maybe because I don't like to be influenced. It's just too much propaganda in my life and in my backstory, right? But I guess when we're talking about B2B marketing, let's say, everyone wants to be a thought leader, right? And basically in B2B marketing, influencers are essentially thought leaders.
Exactly.
And that's kind of that's will never go away, because that's still always one of the top objectives for any company. You
Hmm.
want to be heard, and you want to be positioned as the guy who knows everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's a good
true.
point. Like the terminology is bad because you have, I mean, and everyone adopts their own. So thought leader is one person's influencer, who's another person's key opinion leader or
Oh yeah.
KOL, which is
Hmm.
a term I particularly hate. Um, but again, it's really people who have an audience who listen to them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I did want to say, Click to View being in the B2B world, we deal with thought leaders, but I'm curious if anyone has had experiences in the B2C world with the influencer dealing with, actually paid content to promote a product. Leave us a comment in the comments. I'd love to hear people's experience of dealing with influencers on that level.
Absolutely, and also press like with a thumbs up because
I could do that too.
we're basically wannabe influencers here at Click to View,
Yeah,
and
we're
subscribe to our
wannabe.
channel. Give us a thumbs up and
Mhm.
tell all your friends.
Yeah.
There you
Maybe
go.
we'll become thought leaders, or even key opinion leaders. Who knows?
That's right. I've got my my self help book in readiness for publication right
Mhm.
now. It's going to be an Amazon bestseller.
Excellent. You have a title?
No, sorry, I've drawn a complete blank on that one.
We'll have to write one and go back in and edit. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There will be like editing. There will be half an hour later.
How not to and ah. That's maybe that's it.
All right.
All right, guys, we've got a great list of videos to go through this week.
Mhm.
Starting with one of our own. We helped Prudential, which is an insurance company in Singapore, turn their sustainability report, which I'm sure was gripping reading. I don't know,
Mhm.
Arta, you probably read it,
Oh yeah.
into an interesting animated video. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that, Arta, as the director of this particular video.
Yeah, sure. So Prudential is one of our clients, and they made the inaugural, the very first sustainability report, because that's part of the big vision. And I think Prudential is trying to become some sort of wellness brand, not only insurance brand. And when they talk about sustainability, it's not only about the environment. Actually, they identified 7 pillars, which include like people, community efforts, etc., partnerships with their suppliers. And basically, yes, it was like a long, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 pages. I don't remember. It was so long time ago, and I won't remember. But the fact is that we basically had to choose the most interesting facts and basically make some sort of a teaser of each of these categories. We introduced a couple of interesting findings, and then present them in a cute animation ways, and then just in the end invite interested people to follow and download it. So hopefully that will work well, and that's definitely one of the ways that you can basically maximize your content, because a lot of brands invest a lot of money into these reports, but they just sit on their websites and no one knows about them. So again, like you have to kind of utilize what you have. Your all thought leadership and opinions and
Mhm.
influence, you have to be repurposed.
Yeah, and an animated explainer or an infographic is really a good way to share that information in an engaging way. I'm going to jump straight. I'm going to skip you, David, on that one and jump straight into the Adobe brand. It's a brand film of the year, so
Mhm.
I didn't know there was a brand film award, but it sounds great. We should enter it. And but I tell you what, the standard is pretty
Pretty high.
amazing. What do you
Yeah.
think, David?
I thought it was awesome, and I think it really jives really well with our talk about influencers. So, just a bit of background: the concept is Adobe had this contest for college students to make a poster, a movie poster, and then the winner, that poster would be turned in retroactively into a film. And this particular one is directed by Zach Braff, stars Alicia Silverstone, and it's about what would influencers be like today's Instagram influencer transposed into the 1800s. So all the text has to be written out by hand. The photo has to be taken with an old-fashioned photo with flash powder, and the developed photo has to be flown by owl to be actually posted. And I just thought it was hilarious. It's super high production value. I mean, it looks like a feature film.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe it will become a feature film one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was
But it's a great satire. It's a great satire, but at the
Mhm.
same time, again, like Adobe basically shows that they're the creative powerhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the stuff that they do. There was also another one, Arthur, that you shared
Hmm.
about Siemens. This is another, I think, award winner or runner up about an engineering student who created a better prosthetic foot. That was a lovely little film.
Yeah. So the brand film awards in the US, they basically have multiple categories. So this Adobe film won kind of like the whole overall brand film, but in B2B category, the Siemens basically case study video, it won like a honorable mention. And it's a story about the military vet who was shot in Afghanistan, and he basically he loves outdoors. He's very active, and he had a prosthetic limb, but it was too heavy. And then this student basically partnered with Siemens, and they created the food that I think was like 30 or 40% lighter, and basically allowed him to run and do more stuff. So it's kind of nice where you feature the human story, emotional story, but also feature the capabilities of the technological conglomerate, which Siemens is.
Yeah, that's right. They had to shave 40% off the weight there.
Mhm.
And then the next one is from the meditation app Headspace. And when I was watching it, it kind of freaked me out because I've tried Headspace, and there's that sort of that British guy's voice is feeding out at me. I instantly sort of went into the breathing mode and sort of closed my eyes. And
So you were triggered, but in a good way.
whereas I find it weird listening to the English accent in a meditation video. No offense to the English, the accent sounds really good in most cases, except in the meditation video. It's just not sure.
Did you hear like sipping a beer in between the now you can breathe and relax? No,
He's
Headspace is
probably
actually
sipping Dom Perignon at what Headspace charges for their paid app.
yeah. But Headspace introduced this video is kind of like the overall promise video, but also they mention a few things that clearly are targeting the current COVID situation. That they provide free access to their guided meditation and mindful workouts for healthcare professionals and also unemployed people, those in need, because obviously it's a very stressful time for everyone, and I think everyone can benefit from taking care of their mind.
Absolutely.
And a very, very nice animation style as well. Very cute.
Well, that's what I liked about it. And I mean, Arthur, we're going to talk about this next week, but it's just really nice to see different styles of animation coming through in some of these branded content pieces.
Yes. And especially if marketers are actually ready to maybe sometimes step outside their defined brand guidelines and be a bit more creative, that's for sure possible. And I think one of the next picks that we were planning to talk about is from Sprout.
That's a good point. This one by Sprout, really cool stop motion, but it did put the fear of God into me in terms of my own kids' screen time. Tell us about it, Arthur.
It's a great example of how you can turn interesting findings from the report, similar to what we did with Prudential. And this animation uses a hybrid of styles, where you have stop motion with illustrations, with a 2D animation and design. And it talks about how parents and kids are dealing with technology. And what I liked about it, that it kind of tries to cover both positives and negative sides, not only about, oh no, they're spending all the time there, but also kids are actually learning some stuff. And I guess, again, the final message is it's all about the balance.
Yep. And very creative visuals. And again, it's another example of taking just facts and figures and presenting them in a really, really enjoyable way.
Yeah, it's just something nice about that, right? When it's done well.
Yep.
And then finally, we got a video by PayPal, which we stupidly left the link off in our newsletter. Bad proofreading by David and myself. I actually did notice the link wasn't there, but I figured somebody would pick it up. I should.
Oh no.
Yeah. So bad me. My bad in particular.
Lesson learned. Yeah.
Exactly.
Never trust anyone. Never trust anyone.
Especially the boss. So Arthur, maybe you can tell us what's in this video, because I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, I will tell you, because I found it and I watched it, and I'm sure we did it on purpose. We just wanted to check if anyone reads our newsletter.
Yes.
And I hope that we'll receive dozens of angry emails from the clients. I wanted to see that link. We will tell you what is it. It's a case study video about how Google Cloud, being a safe, secure, and super scalable cloud solution, supports the financial services company PayPal in their bright vision of hitting 1 billion daily customers, and basically supporting and helping for the unbanked to bank the unbanked and serve the underserved with their financial product. So it's a nice vision. Two passionate executives talking about how they support people and businesses.
This is really important, bringing people into the formal economy. It's important for raising people out of poverty. It's been going on for a while too. I remember, it's probably 10 years ago. You could in Africa, it was quite popular. M-Pesa with pre-smartphone SMS.
And it's quite interesting that those mobile payment solutions actually tend to get the much higher adoption in those emerging third world countries, because everyone would think like, oh yeah, this country is well developed, they have smartphones, probably they have mobile payments everywhere, but then it's not true, right? And for example, like Japan, if we know that it's super high-tech country, but they're so conservative in terms of cash, and so many places you can't even pay with a card. But then, yes, like somewhere in Bangladesh or Kenya, they're quite active in using mobile payments for everyday necessities.
Yeah, I think that there's a resistance to change maybe in developed markets. I know I was doing an interview for Visa the other day with a newsagent in Australia, and he was saying that it's taken something like coronavirus to make a lot of older people start using contactless payments over cash, and he's seen quite a big spike in that area over the last 2 months.
Yep.
Rightio. Thanks very much, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Stay sane. Use Headspace. Meditate. Breathe.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That's the content show for another week. Episode 11. Who'd have thought we'd make it?